I think that. Sorry.
So I think the biggest misconception I had about Oxford interviews before actually coming here for interview was that they would be really, really like aggressive, and that my interviewer would be trying to like catch me out and trying to test me on things that I couldn't possibly know. I'd heard like all of the kind of scary Oxford questions that you read in newspapers, the like tell me about a banana sort of thing, and I did have some kind of slightly strange questions in my interviews, but they followed like a really natural pattern of conversation. They weren't just kind of thrown on me, like it was a natural progression, and so that was completely wrong.
So when I came to interview here, I was obviously quite nervous, but actually I was mainly quite excited about it. It sounds a bit strange, but I almost applied to Oxford to get to the interview stage. But the reasoning behind that was you get to stay in an Oxford college for 5 days and nights for free in like a college accommodation, get loads of free food, and like get 5 days off school. Like I kind of thought, like, why on earth would you not apply for that, even if I don't get into the future? So I thought it was a really positive experience like that. When it came to the actual interviews itself, I made quite a big error in mine. We're given like pre-interview reading before the interview, and I was a bit confused in it because it was like a big A3 sheet, but only like the top corner was covered, and it started halfway through a sentence, halfway through a paragraph, talking about Mr. Tasnini's performance, and I was like, who's Mr. Tasnini and what on earth is he performing? But here's the misconception part, when I was like, oh, it's Oxford, they want you to think outside the box and work out what's happening. So I went along with that, spent half an hour reading this paragraph, and got into the interview. We spoke about it for 10 minutes, they asked me to summarise it and stuff like that, and then they said, so last question for this section of the interview, could you refer specifically to the last paragraph at the bottom of page 1? Which is when I went really red and said, I'm really sorry, I didn't realise it was double-sided. Turn over the piece of paper, there are 4 pages photocopied on the other side, and I had read the last paragraph that just happened to the other side. So instead of thinking like Oxford like want you to think outside the box, what would have been the more logical thing is to think, could this be double-sided? If so, probably give the other side a read. But like even that, it was absolutely fine. The tutors just laughed and they continued with the interview, so it was really cool.
For me, like doing Chinese studies, I had no idea what to expect from my interviews. I'd never met anybody who had done this subject, especially at Oxford. My school was not equipped to like train me for this, so I went in not having many expectations. But I remember I really enjoyed it, and I wasn't nervous actually, because I finally got to talk to people who were really enthusiastic about my subject, which I never really had the chance to do before. But like, yeah, some of it was a bit random, caught me off guard, but it was completely natural, as you said as well. And certain things I wouldn't have expected to be asked as well, like I remember talking about the photo that I had taken that was attached to my notebook, and we had a discussion about that at one point in my interview, which was really fun, and then other academic things as well.
When I did get invited to interview, I was quite scared because I'd heard lots of horror stories about Oxford interviews, how they're sort of interrogations and they're just there to catch you out. And my experience was absolutely nothing like that. It was very much, I think, just to summarise, if you know anything about the Oxford system of learning, it's just like a mock tutorial really. So it's just the tutors want to know if you can just have a good academic chat, and that's all it is really. And when I realised that after my first interview, I had 6 overall, but the next 5 were much just sort of more relaxed on my part. I wasn't afraid of them, and that's just the nicest way to approach them really. I didn't have any kind of really shocking things where I forgot to read three quarters of the work. But one thing that I did realise is that they're all very different. So I think it's all just about being really open-minded. Don't get worried about them at all. and just be impressed that you've just got so far in the process. And it's always held in a really lovely week in Oxford, so I did lots of Christmas shopping. I had a great time, and while everyone else was at school, it was great.
Just, it felt like a kind of like a really stimulating and enjoyable academic chat, rather than being like terrifyingly interrogated by someone who had scary amount of expert knowledge in my subject. So yeah, it definitely was not what I was expecting.